Okay, we are live May 19th, 2025. This is the IPS evening deprogram. That is Symbia, Auto Hoaxology. We are live on the backup YouTube channel, as well as Twitch, Twitter, Odyssey, and a slew of internet radio streaming platforms like radio.net, Paranormal Radio, where I think we numbered, was it 8 out of 13 or number 33 out of 50? And we're also on TuneIn. So if you want to get a full list of all the different sites that we're on, just go to ips.monster. And I'm building up a list there of all the different platforms and how to join the chat if you're just listening. A lot has happened in the last couple of days. I was going to go live immediately after the Mexican boat hit the Brooklyn Bridge, but I wanted to wait and see. I wanted to see what came out of this first. So let's see here. Joined by Diana Southard, Observing Reality, the HBIC, Mazel, Thirst for Truth, Observing Reality, got the alerts. Good. I've been working on the trading cards. So the IPS, the PSYOP trading card deck is going to be going into print here on the 22nd, so in 3 days. So you have 3 days to get a pre-order in. And once I have them in and packaged and sent out, I'll have additional sets for sure. We haven't sold them all. But then after that, we're going to move on to the next set of 12 and 12 and 12. And so we're going to continue this process. And if you want to join in, I have templates. And I've developed a card template that we're going to use. And a number of you have sent and submitted different designs and ideas. And I'm trying to put it all in. But the first 12 will be ordered on the 22nd. And before the 1st, they'll be shipped to those who supported this project. And this project, I think, is going to accomplish what the tabloid has not accomplished yet, which is sustainability and scalability, which is very important here. Because the tabloid is clearly for a niche, the small group of insiders on the off-world stage. But the PSYOP trading cards have a broader appeal, I think on par with the Stephen Jackson Illuminati playing cards, especially because these are current. So you can look forward to that. And if you got the newsletter by email just now, you saw that there's an advertisement listed there. So easy to find. So let's go ahead and go through top stories in no particular order. I mean, there's so many things. And phones are open. You have an agent here standing by if you want to call in. Exciting times. It's May 19th. We're just weeks away from 6/11. Somewhat a prophesied doomsday, but highly significant. You see, if things continue as they always have, as they seem to be, as the future seems to be really following the same trajectory, I don't see anything changing. It's not like the next big event's going to be real. It's just fake, fake, fake. That's the rule, not the exception. The fakery is a feature, not a bug. It's not just a force multiplier, but it's the main thing here. And had we more insight, we would have known weeks or even months before 9/11 what was going to happen. The story was out there. It was in the ether. It was in the entertainment. It was in the media ecosystem. And if you knew what you were looking at, you could have seen it. But none of us knew because we didn't have that intel. We didn't have the insights. We didn't understand how mass media really works and what it really is. Because it's not news getting information so everybody can figure out what's going on. That's really the opposite of what it is. But now that we know, we're able to use this wider analysis of media encompassing entertainment, the politics, the celebrity stuff. All this stuff is all taken as a single whole, and we are able to make predictions with regularity. This is Planet Netflix, and I'm not being facetious when I'm saying that. So knowing this, we have a pretty good reason for looking at 6/11 as though it might be a highly significant date in this wider drama. And, I was at a relative's house recently, and I heard a discussion, and I don't drive these discussions, but I heard some normies talking about how Trump did some World Wrestling Entertainment theatrics, that the shooting was fake. Like, that's not a difficult pill for people to swallow. The problem is, they can't put it in the right context to where it makes any sense. But it's something that people entertain, which is kind of interesting. It shows you how fractured the worldview is when it's taken through the TV. Like, now, this is fake, but the consensus doesn't agree. And it just shows you how we're all essentially gaslit by the TV into going with whatever's reported, even if our common sense is betrayed. And that's the definition of gaslighting. Don't trust your perceptions, trust what we tell you. But it was somewhat heartening, because I'm like, okay, well, critical thinking is a thing. The problem is your critical thinking is taking place within a closed system of information. And what we're doing here, this is what the third branch of media, this parallel media or off-world stage analysis is really about. It's about getting out of their parameters to get enough intel to know what's going on. Fertility bombing psyop, what a joke. Yeah, I listened to the guy's manifesto. So the guy who bombed the fertility clinic is like an anti-birth. He doesn't think we should be born. So he's not a anti-abortion person, killing people. He's a anti-life itself. And I looked at his and I'll bring up his thumbnail. He kind of gave me Adam Lanza, David Hogg vibes. Somebody said gave them me vibes, but I don't know. I agree that guy, what was his name? His name was like, who was the one who chopped off his father's head on video? The FBI agent. And then he wrote all these ridiculous manifestos. Osman. No, that's what they called him. What was his name, though? Someone has to remind me of this character. There are so many of these PSYOP actors. I need to make a card for this one. Who was the PSYOP actor who chopped off his dad's head? And he was trying to... he had a militia. He was going to start off a movement. Let me see if I can pull this person up. But anyway, my point is, I understand why people say that he resembled me. And we kind of entertain the idea that they're trying to create this construct, this archetype, and attach it to what we're doing. Self-publishing books, live streaming, and that kind of thing. This guy, though, clearly an actor. Okay, here it is. It was Justin Moan, because they were calling him Justin Osmone. Justin Moan held for murder after beheading his father, and somebody identified his father's head. It's some like rubber head you can buy from some special effects, Halloween store. Like it's just some Halloween prop. I mean, it was just like a prop with blood in a bag. Totally fake, low budget FBI psyop. But we'll have to give that one a card. Okay, getting back on track here. Oh, yes. So I listened to his manifesto. It was 30 minutes. I actually fell asleep listening to it. It was kind of boring, but you know what I thought? My impression? It sounded like AI. I've worked with so many different AI applications, text to voice, where some of these new ones, in order to sound less, they humanize them. So if you want one that stutters, that mispronounces a word, corrects itself, speaks grammatically incorrect once in a while, if you want to have a humanized voice, you just tap that option. And it sounded like a humanized AI manifesto, and he just sounded arrogant and obnoxious. I wasn't all that impressed. I thought it was a low-budget psyop. I mean, low-effort psyop. It might have had some decent budget. I didn't check out all the special effects. But yes, that's another story. Yeah, today is the 19th of May, Ted Stryker. Check your calendars. It is May the 19th, 2025. And then we missed Infinite Plane Saturday and Sunday. And the boat thing really... I did look deeply into this. In fact, one of the first things I thought when I saw the sailors falling off the mast, I thought that looks exactly like the bodies dangling on the movie poster for Final Destination. So I took the timing of it into advisement here. So let's go ahead and just start going through the notes here. Stand with Toad. So another person here using the excuse of oppression, because this is the thing. It's kind of a trend right now. Roseanne Barr drew attention to it, the woke right, where you see these far right types adopting the tactics of the far left. And they're calling them woke right, which they hate it. But they're basically saying, we're oppressed. We're trying to speak the truth. We're fighting for free speech. Will you help us? Because we're being oppressed. So this started with Shiloh Hendricks. She says the N-word at a park at a 5-year-old autistic kid. And now she's seen as a culture warrior fighting for the nationalists on the right. And so they funded her $750,000. And then there's been this release of a song by Ye where he says Hail Hitler, and people are singing it live, getting fired from their jobs, and then raising money off of it. So they're following Shiloh Hendricks's business model of playing the victim to raise money. Basically, racist crisis actors. And it's working. So this individual here, I don't know who he is, but he played Ye's new song on a ukulele. And I didn't listen to it, but I checked out his account just to see. And he raised, with the help of some of his influencers on Twitter, $7,200 so far for a ukulele version of Ye's new song. And that's just Give, Send, Go donations. So this is a business model now. And I've seen others succeed with it. Ye reads Australian painters. Okay, so Ye was reading something here. And I immediately knew it was a hoax. But let me go ahead and play this. You got to hear this. And then tell me if this sets off any BS detectors. Because when I heard this, I thought, there's no way this is real. This has to be a hoax. And people fall for hoaxes all the time. And this hoax here is Ye talking about how Hitler was warning the world about the, quote, Illuminati. So we play this. And he's reading it to a room full of people, of yes men. So no one here is ever going to tell him, hey, put down the nitrous oxide here. Do some fact checking. Ask Grok before you speak here. But no, listen to this. So here is Ye reading Hitler's speech on a live stream.
Hitler said even in his death he will start World War III. One of his soldiers asked how. Hitler replied, the day mankind finds out what I was trying to defend this nation from, then that's the day World War III will start. For on that day mankind will learn that I was trying to save my nation from the Freemasons, the Illuminati.
Okay. So he says that when they find out he was trying to defend the nations from the Freemasons and the Illuminati and the you-know-whos, World War III will start. So I did a fact check, took about 5 seconds, and it turns out that the quote surfaced in a 2016 book by Deneen Barnett, and the quote does not appear in the text. So it's something here is basically added on. The quote on social media shows up in the 2018 book, The Hidden Treasures That Lie in Plain Sight, Day 4. Anyway, the long and short of it is, and you can go to the archive and check, it's a fake quote that's been inserted into a text, and it's been making the rounds. Oh, someone has actually checked it. This video shows Kanye West reading Hitler's speech on a live stream. It's fabricated, no evidence confirms such an event occurred. So I'm just pointing this out, that it's very easy for people to walk themselves into these echo chambers. And nobody around him is going to say, hey, you got this wrong. Nobody's going to correct the guy. It's kind of interesting to see what happens here. It's the danger of becoming too insulated. The echo chambers. Candace Owens is currently trying to rehabilitate a convicted Hollywood sex criminal, yet refuses to talk to me, says Nicholas Fuentes. Yeah, Candace Owens right now is trying to save Harvey Weinstein. That's her new project. I think she's the greatest Poe on the internet. Candace Owens doesn't believe anything she promotes. She's a parody of extremism. She carries it so far. She never drops character. There's no way she truly believes this stuff. Her performative Christianity is when she really crossed the line, in my opinion. When I saw that, I realized, okay, at this point, it's just a way to troll, just so that she can say Christ is king. It's all a big parody. The world stage is parody. We thought it was a horror show. Sometimes it seems that way, but it's mostly a parody. So, Growing Sports Bat, whatever. This is Glowing Spore Bat. Sorry, Twitter names. Glowing Spore Bat has said, and this is a quote, our balls have wood chips, aluminum, and God knows what else in them, thanks to the deep state, their manipulation of the water supply, food supply, and the chemtrails. So the cult of Trutherism believes that their testicles are full of wood and metal and other unknown substances because of basically Hillary Clinton. And I'm just making note of this because there are consequences to all of these conspiracy theories that are promulgated by government. You have to make a distinction between what we're doing here, media analysis, discerning lies, separating fake from real, and conspiracy conjecture. Most conspiracy theories, if not all of them, originate from the government. special agents. The Air Force is responsible for the UFO mythology. I mean, think about it. You have all these people, and this is why it's so popular. Why do you think there are so many people with big channels on YouTube talking about disclosure? I mean, disclosure. Doesn't that sound like revelation? We're waiting for disclosure from above, from higher powers. It's a religion. So ufology is not just a psyop, disinformation campaign waged against people who are looking too closely at hidden technology or spying on the military planes at the Air Force bases, because that's what the documentary Mirageman is about. Conspiracy theorist notices stuff at the Air Force Base, so they enter his life, infiltrate it, and flood his mind with all kinds of UFO stuff. He actually ends up basically losing his mind. We're talking, he goes crazy. The Air Force drove this conspiracy theorist crazy with their lies. They gave him such a bad case of cognitive dissonance. When they told him the truth, he wouldn't believe it. But yeah, he was committed. But I bring this up because I don't think we can safely assume that they only take an interest in screwing with our minds with regard to UFOs and aliens. I think chemtrails, QAnon, all this stuff comes from the government. It's all psyop. It's not legitimately truth-seeking. But it's meant to get truth-seekers distracted so they don't find anything useful out. And it works. It works, and it continues to work because they're actively promoting this stuff. This is what's called an active measure. There's a reason why you get so many big channels pushing chemtrail nonsense. They're getting paid. A lot of these things, if they're heavily promoted on X and they're obvious BS, yeah, somebody's paying these individuals. Here's a Willy Wonka meme. 150 people are needed to operate submarines traveling at 33 knots, yet only 5 are needed to operate the ISS traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. It's a pretty good meme. It's not going to change any minds. You know, they don't notice discrepancies. When they see discrepancies, their go-to is, that doesn't look like anything to me. Just like in Westworld. When the synths see something that's outside of their little script, they don't see it. Their mind won't process it. So the other day I was talking about Joe Rogan and how he's so disappointed that aliens didn't build the pyramids because his guest, who was the former minister of antiquities in Egypt, this Egyptologist who's been there for 60 years, his guest debunked the idea that aliens built pyramids. In fact, he's identified the pyramid builders and their tombs, their lineage. He's uncovered how they made these things. And, you know, Joe Rogan and many others are attached to the ancient alien ideas, and they want to live in this fantasy, which I understand. Actually, I don't understand. And they don't want the truth, even though it's been published. And this guy, his name was Haywas, Dr. Haywas, was explaining how he tried to show his published work to Art Bell years ago, decades ago, to no avail. Nobody wants to hear the truth, that people of Egypt built the pyramids, and they did so with methods that can be and have been replicated today. But still, people want to believe in aliens and, you know, levitation, hidden technology, etc. But I saw this video on X today. So this is a guy with a moped. And it looks like just one of those simple mopeds. Like we have these communal mopeds all over. You know, you scan it with your phone and you can, if you're averse to walking, you can ride a moped. But anyway, he takes this moped because he's buying a couch. And he puts this large couch on the thing. And next thing you know, he's actually riding the couch down the street, and people are cheering because he found a way to use this little moped to move a couch. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, yeah, humans built the pyramids, 100%. Sidetracked. But yes, not aliens with unknown tech, not giants. Clearly, that's something that humans could do. Just spontaneous ingenuity. Why did Kate Perry keep staring at the camera during her 11-minute space journey? There's still a lot of people out there. I mean, this is a very popular topic just because it's her calling it fake. But I'm noticing, too, a lot of people are just suggesting that this event was less than a real trip to space, that it was not high enough. It was basically a glorified carnival ride. So people aren't, sort of like with the Trump head wound. Yeah, he faked his head wound, but the event was pretty much real. Space is real, but Kate Perry didn't really go. And what I'm seeing here is they're just kind of mocking it, that she's considered an astronaut for this thing. Which, yeah, sure, it's mockable, but the joke's still on them. So this first person twittering says, "The other day I cleared my ear with a Q-tip. Now I'm a neurosurgeon." Hawk66 says, "I've been to the hospital before, so I guess that makes me a doctor." Celia says, "I changed the light bulb on the back porch yesterday. I'm an electrician." "My mailman accidentally put my neighbor's mail in my box, so I delivered it to my neighbor. Now I'm a mailman." I mean, you see their point. How is Kate Perry an astronaut? And some of the evidence against her being a real astronaut is that they were wearing 9-inch heels and they had jewelry on, like earrings, and that their hair, this video that I'm not going to play it because you've all seen it, but people are juxtaposing the hair of the Blue Origin with the space station hairdos, and you can tell they're completely different. Okay, let's get into the abortion clinic bombing. "Make no mistake, this is an intentional act of terrorism," says the FBI. "Suspect behind Saturday's deadly bombing at a Palm Springs fertility clinic is a 25-year-old named Guy Bartkus." So his name's Guy, like Guy Fawkes. A resident of 29 Palms, law enforcement confirms that he has carried out a powerful explosion that injured 5 and left him dead. Oh, how convenient, he's dead. So we can't hear him to see if he sounds like the AI audio. And why is it audio? His manifesto is audio. It's like a 30-minute podcast. He didn't type it out. It sounds like a Chat GPT manifesto that they had read. I mean, the FBI is using the same tools that we're using. Law enforcement confirms 05. Okay, he died. Now, he had an audio manifesto prior to the act detailing his motivations. Injuring 22. He videotaped it and set it to upload to his website, but the live stream didn't connect, but he did leave a 30-minute manifesto with his ideology. Again, I listened to it, and I didn't find it all that interesting. He was just kind of arrogant, but he did so on behalf of this notion that we are, I guess, or he's not in favor of us being born. Like, we're not consenting to birth, basically. Like, he does not consent to having been born. Okay, now this might be some predictive programming. Trump did, in fact, tweet this. I thought this was just some crack, spelled with a Q. Some Q people were sharing this. Obama and Trump seated together. This picture was actually shared by Trump on Truth Social. And it says, "All roads lead to Obama. Re-truth if you want public military tribunals." And behind Trump, you see the letter Q+. So if you're not familiar with Q lore, it works like this. The person known as Q is secretly JFK Jr. Q+ is Donald Trump. So between these two Qs, Q and Q+, they're going to save us from the deep state. And this is Donald Trump pandering to his base. Right behind Trump, it literally says Q+. So he's sharing Q content. People are making a lot out of it. I'm just drawing attention to it because these two epitomize the polls. 1776, 1619. That in terms of the script on the world stage, their pairing is highly significant. That's why Obama's portrait was moved away from where it was in the White House and replaced with the portrait of Trump with his bloody head wound. The inference here was, you missed. That was the subtext. So there's a subtext here. There's like this covert war between Trump and Obama that we see kind of played out in subtle ways like this. And the story is developing. Okay, moving on. Predictive programming. So James Comey put the 8647 on the beach, or he made it with AI, whatever they did. The shells say 8647, get rid of Trump. He's been questioned by the Secret Service. People are calling for his arrest. So James Comey is an author. Here's one of his tweets where he's sharing his own book. This one's called FDR Drive, a crime novel. Former FBI Director Comey reunites with the protagonist of his first two legal thrillers for his strongest outing yet. Says here, Garcia believes Buchanan went far beyond the protection of the First Amendment when he singled out his enemies by name and suggested something should be done about them. His fans have obliged killing or injuring some of his foes. So in FDR Drive, there's a mention here of a far-right media personality with a podcast who attacks his opponents and then his listeners go after them. So again, Carmen Garcia is trying to take down Samuel Buchanan, a far-right media personality with a podcast, by vilifying those who are destroying America. So this looks suspiciously like predictive programming or some kind of hint here, because James Comey is engaging in stochastic violence. That's how it's being interpreted. We'll get to the Brooklyn Bridge thing. It reminds me of the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru here. It's got an 8-foot, 4-inch clearance. It's got a sign, and it's all banged up and bent. I wanted to take a picture of it today. So let's see if we can get to the boat. And other strange stuff as well. I mean, okay, so this is... Donald Trump shared this. He shared a video of himself in an Elvis-like manner. Like he's actually dressed up in red, white, and blue, but he looks Elvis-y. Let me play a clip here. Trump posts a bizarre video of himself performing Don't Stop Believing. So here's Donald Trump in a in a stadium, and he's performing Elvis-like, but it's Journey's Don't Stop Believing. And just like the other post, he shared this one. So I thought this might be worth looking at because we're approaching June 11th and we're looking at all these narrative threads seemingly coming together. So here is Donald Trump promoting himself as an Elvis-like character playing a Journey song. There he is, very Elvis-like hairdo. You know, I was looking through some old Jurassic Liars videos, and he found this one image that Jimi Hendrix drew as a kid of Elvis, but he drew Elvis with like Trump-like features and hair. Just kind of a weird side note. But yeah, so there's Trump posting a video of himself playing music to a stadium. Very strange. Okay, here's an example of how I think that we're being hit with psyops. New FAA report reveals they knew the drones over New Jersey were just normal airplanes and helicopters. This report was released via a Freedom of Information to Reason. In November-December 2024, New Jersey and America experienced a week of psychological mass hysteria when thousands of people thought normal airplanes and helicopters were actually swarms invading the Northeast. Well, it turns out that this was known. The FAA knew that there weren't any drone invaders from China, weren't aliens, there weren't orbs. These were airplanes that were believed to be drones by people who didn't know what airplanes looked like. But this hysteria lasted until the fires started in Los Angeles. And then everybody forgot about this. I didn't forget. And I had the impression that this was like some kind of a psyop, an experiment, mass mind control. And I think you can infer that based on the fact that, and it took a Freedom of Information Act request, that they knew this stuff. Again, weeks of psychological mass hysteria. This is again from the report here, what they got from the Freedom of Information Act. The alignment of the aircraft gave the appearance to the observers on the ground of them hovering in formation when they were actually moving in the direction of the observers. Right. Approximately 6 to 7 large drones were sighted traveling from the ocean towards the base and hovering over the coastline. At the time of the reporting, Aircraft arriving from the south on approaching onto JFK were turning around Seagirt, flying for 2 to 3 minutes towards the coast and then back out towards the sea for 3 to 5 minutes and then straight away. And for this period of time, they would appear to hover in the sky. So if they're effectively going back and forth, making a loop or something, you can understand how somebody might get the impression because it's a light in the distance. But that's just how light works. I mean, haven't people figured this out? I mean, how long have you been alive? I mean, I don't know why people are confused. Like, just so you know, if you're one of those persons who's confused by airplanes and think that they're drones, if you're on a train track and the light that you see is slowly getting bigger, it means that the train's coming. Like, we shouldn't have to explain this stuff. Tom103 says, same song Tony Soprano gets whacked to? I didn't know that. Ted Stryker says, have you all seen the Mexican beauty gal who was shot while live? I say that was real. Yeah, I saw she was 20. Was she 22? There was one that was in Brazil that was shot. And there was one that was in Mexico. And they say she was dating some kind of a cartel hitman. And a gift was delivered. I don't have any reason to think it was fake. It could be a psyop. It could be a hoax. But I don't know. What would be the intention? I mean, whenever if there's a psyop, it's more than just the shock value. Femicide is one of the issues. So it could be some kind of pushback against entrenched toxic masculinity or something. It could be a psyop. I don't know. I didn't see it. All I saw was the video, and nothing about it raises red flags as far as, is it outside the realm of possibility? I don't know. I lived in El Paso for a little while when I was in the military. And there were lots of examples of how dangerous it could be for women, especially the ones who had to walk long distances to work. They were just easy prey. And there was some mass grave that was uncovered, and we weren't supposed to go down there because of the activities. But so I don't know. I kind of think there's a chance it was real, but we'll see. Synchromorphia says they're calling it a femicide, which is murder of a female for being female. Seems metascripty. Well, that was a thing. You know, if it's not just a murder, but it's like gun related or hate related, if there's some other attachment to it, it's got an agenda and it goes viral, then I think it might be hoaxy. But we'll see. I have to wait and see. Lickety Split says, what was the point of allowing it to run the news cycle? That's another thing. And then, yeah, another headline, murder of Colombian model sparks outrage over rising femicides. So if they suddenly draw attention, if there's like 5 or 6 of them in a row, then yes, it could be hoaxy. Constant Elevation ordered up a set of cards. Excellent. Yeah, so the cards go into print on the 22nd. I spent today working on templates, and I'm actually kind of basing it off of Magic the Gathering, but I'm going to have the first 12 ordered on the 22nd. I'll have those out as soon as possible. And then we're going into distribution, and every time I sell another 12, I'm going to order the next set. But we're going to be able to keep this rolling forward with additional cards with each set. Okay, this is a new meme template that we're going to start using. It's got the Mystery Science Theater crowd, the 3 individuals. I think we're going to add a penguin in here or something. I think Cupstar did one. But if you're not familiar with the story of Mystery Science Theater, the premise of it is this. A group of individuals, they're kidnapped by some hostile, sadistic alien, and they're forced to watch bad science fiction until they go crazy. Instead of going crazy, they laugh at the shoddy productions, B-movies, throw their popcorn, and they just basically have a good time. And they retain their sanity. And that describes us. This is Mystery Babylon Theater 2025. And we know it's all a clown show. So we don't go crazy. And by crazy, you're technically crazy if you believe a lot of BS, delusions, nonsense, and hyperstitions and superstitions. The general public has gone crazy because of the propaganda programming. We have not. And so in many ways, we're all captive to this sadistic alien that runs this place, but we've managed to dodge the worst of it by being a little more aware. as to what really matters here. And so this meme template is going to be applied to anything that we suspect to be fake theater, designed to drive people crazy. Think about these psyops that turn people into psychopaths all the time. How many people right now are cheering Luigi Mangione? You know, right now there's a musical in production about Luigi Mangione. So anybody who's celebrating someone who murders somebody by shooting them in the back is manifesting some form of psychopathy, sociopathy. You can't say that's normal. You can't say that's acceptable. All right, moving on. Lickety Split says luch harvesting. Yeah, I would agree. Luch has a strange kind of a connotation, but I think it's an accurate term. Like, what are they taking out of you? Your attention. The definition of luch, and it was derived from a man named Robert Monroe, who had out-of-body experiences at 40. It's a hypothetical energy given off by the human when the soul is traumatized, and the archons parasitically feed on it. So let's say hypothetically, we are light beings, spirits incarnated into a realm, a material realm, that cuts us off of our higher mental and spiritual faculties and has us confined to this illusion that we're just over-evolved apes. Well, in this world, in this prison, where we're kept ignorant of our divine nature, our soul is being siphoned off by the world itself in a myriad of ways. Psyops, violence, war, whatever it takes to get reactions. And that our reactions become the energy sources that this thing needs to sustain itself. Like the matrix battery concept. If we're matrix batteries, the energy stored in the battery is the luch. And that's what they need. So we're kind of, in a way, complicit, or at least we're co-manifesting this, if you believe that. And our unconscious participation allows them to mold the world. That is, whoever's scripting this mystery Babylon theater, it allows them to design the place, or gives them creative control. And on a spiritual, metaphysical level, people will say, yeah, that's what's happening. I don't know. I will say that the propaganda and worldview warfare certainly gives a power elite a monopoly on mass perception and how the history is recorded. So they have control over the past, which gives them control over the future, and it's exerted by their control over the present, which we see through fake news. Fake news, aka propaganda, worldview warfare, allows them to create the collective backdrop against which we all act, our shared history. So the shared delusion upon which the world stage rests, that's what is being created by the mass media, and it does take our, maybe not our luch, but it takes our attention. It takes our conscious participation and our interaction. So I think it's a valid word. Luch harvesting works for me. Okay, moving on. Now, ChatGPT analyzes Trump's assassination attempt. There are startling details. This was posted by the Mouthy Renegade. Now, I don't think this person is a full-blown media skeptic or auto-hoaxer, but they certainly recognize something is off here. Okay, he's not the author of it. Who's the author? The author's name is Aaron Manley Smith. I asked ChatGPT, the one you actually have to pay thousands of dollars for, not the free one, to study this image, and we went down a rabbit hole. Question: does this look like a wound suffered from an AR-15 or theatrical makeup quickly applied? Why does this not look like an AR-15 grazing wound? And it gives answers. Lack of tissue trauma. A 5.56 millimeter AR-15 round, even on a graze, would cause shredded or torn skin, visible cartilage damage, swelling, deformation, burn-like effects from the heat and friction. The image shows none of that. The ear is intact. The skin has no breakage, tearing, or swelling. No secondary trauma. No shockwave deformation. Clean, controlled blood trails. Real bleeding from a gunshot wound would be messy, unpredictable, and actively flowing, following gravity in irregular patterns. Soaked clothing and running into headlines and neck folds. But this blood appears to be strategically placed in thin lines. Drips in parallel curves like art direction, not biology. Stops short of reaching the collar, has no pooling or saturation. Color and viscosity. The blood from a fresh arterial graze would be bright and red, but would oxidize quickly and darken, and have varying viscosities depending on clotting and trauma. But the blood in the photo is uniform in color, almost syrup-like. Has the glossy, theatrical look of fake blood used in movies or Halloween kits. It sits on top of the skin instead of blending into the pores or running down naturally. Expression and behavior. Someone just grazed by a high-velocity round would show signs of shock, pain, and discomfort, muscle tension, flinching, sweating, and trauma-induced orientation. Trump's face, calm, poised, no tension around jaws, eyes, or forehead, mouth is relaxed, not clenched. He appears to be aware. Why does it look like theatrical makeup? Final verdict. I'm just going to go to the final verdict here. The image does not display the physiological traits of high-velocity grazing gunshot wounds. It does have the hallmarks of intentional staging. Controlled blood, intact anatomy, no trauma, perfect photographic drama. This isn't a battlefield injury, it's propaganda theater, meticulously crafted for visual impact, not survival. I'm highly confident, based on known ballistic science, anatomy, wound behavior, and image analysis standards, that the image in the being questioned here is not consistent with an AR-15 grazing wound. Now, it says here, this assessment is grounded not in speculation, but probability. See attached chart. So scrolling down, they're asking ChatGPT how certain it is. It says 95% confidence that the wound here is either A, artificially enhanced, or superficial, if not entirely staged. Now it says we can't be 100% because we haven't seen the medical forensics. That alone, like if it was real, we would have seen it. If it was real, he's the type of personality that would frame it, that would publish it. The odds are that this is a genuine AR-15 are extremely low. It looks like symbolism crafted for optics. So there we go. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. This is many, many pages. But if you want to look at this, anybody who says it was real has no basis for saying so. You have to be comfortable taking away the intellectual and moral high ground of complicit liars in these big deceptions. Like, if they believe it's true, you are going along with a propaganda lie. And now, it's not just me saying it. It's not just people speaking from common sense or some understanding of how media works, but no, it's ChatGPT, the expensive model. You want to put your analysis against that? Feel free. The bar has been raised. I can't wait until they start applying this to the space fakery. Lord Laney says, this is why that judge stopped the guy who was using ChatGPT to represent himself in court, threatens the hegemony of law. Right. Copacetic says, there's an ad or a story I saw about femicide in China about the one-child law. Could be something. Okay, I either saw something about that or there's a movie about it. China's former one-child policy. I got to look that up because you're right. There might be a connection here. We'll have to dig into that one. But I'm finding the death of the social media influencer very questionable. Okay, let's move on. So James Comey did meet with the Secret Service. He wrote a book, a thriller, about stochastic violence. Nothing fishy there. Let me play this clip, because I think this is good news. A lot of people are alarmed by this. So they're going up to young college students and asking them questions about 9/11, and they're hilariously uninformed about it. I mean, I saw this video where this girl was laughing. She's like, oh yeah, Osama bin Laden, didn't he die in the plane crash? They don't know. This is a channel called Paul Atreides, and he's calling them multicultural Zoomers. That's what he's calling them. But I'm just pointing out here how none of them know anything about 9/11, and I don't have a problem with this.
Who attacked us on 9/11? who attacked us. What's the group called?
ISIS.
ISIS. Yeah.
A terrorist. I don't know the exact name. I forgot.
Okay. I don't want to say the wrong. Iraq, Afghanistan.
It was, I believe, a group of terrorists that hijacked a few planes, flew them into the Twin Towers.
Osama bin Laden.
It was the terrorist group, yeah.
Okay. And do you know like what terrorist group?
Not specifically.
Dude,
No.
hold on. I just gotta think. 1 second.
Okay, now, these are not conspiracy theorists. So the conspiracy theorists are very, very misinformed. And the normal people are just misinformed. But for the most part, the normal people, when I say normal, I mean the ones who aren't questioning the media. They're just kind of going along with it. They're not even thinking about it that deeply. Like, they don't even care. People are somewhat disconnected. I saw some footage of the boat crashing. And one of the common things that I saw with everybody watching it is they're laughing. They're laughing as the boat hits the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll pull up some of these posts here. Like, fight or flight is now, well, it used to be fight or flight. Now it's like fight or film. Fight, flight, or film. Most people film. It's strange. I mean, if you're getting beaten to death, you're going to be a TikTok video. That's kind of people's priorities. Everyone assumes somebody else is going to step in or call 911. But let me see if I can find that clip. There are so many examples of it. By the way, I found a copy of In the Country of the Blind. In the Country of the Blind by Michael Flynn, not General Michael Flynn. This book came out in the 80s. It's about, and the old cover has a guy with an eye patch. And behind him is an atom bomb exploding. But this is about a small cabal who became possessed of a supercomputer and took over the news. And then wrote the supercomputer's existence out of the news. So nobody knows that they have this capacity to aggregate all the information and steer human societies. Just basically what we're experiencing now through the worldview monopoly. But in this case, this book makes the case, explain in the science fiction how it would work. And when it gets exposed, the public mobs up and they start going after the people who are listed in this Q doc that revealed everybody who was behind this global manipulation of public opinion. But it's called In the Country of the Blind. And I talked about it before because it was basically about this group of people who figured this out. And this group assassinates them one by one. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey,
Can you hear me? This is Lickety Split.
Hey, what's up, Lickety Split? What topic are we covering that has piqued your interest tonight?
So your audio sounds weird right now, but I can hear you, but that's kind of iffy.
Oh, wait,
Anyway,
wait, hold on. Okay, well, keep talking, and I'll see if I can fix my audio.
Okay, I mean on the phone, not your audio on the stream. Your audio right now talking to me is just a little echoey, but it's not that bad. Anyway, so yeah, the IVF bombing, so-called bombing, I guess you could say, is the topic I'm calling it about. But it also relates, I think, just now it kind of triggered me was the talking about luch harvesting. And then, like, the archons, and then that gets into the demiurge and all that kind of talk, and got me thinking just now, like, that's kind of what the IVF bomber guy sounded like. I don't know how many people heard the audio. I'm sure you heard it.
I fell asleep halfway through. What did I miss? Like, what was his big picture?
Right. No, it was like I only had like 8 minutes, 10 minutes of it because it was just like a little crybaby. Like he sounded like. But it was kind of like that. He was almost saying that like life is just like a luch harvest, and like he didn't want to allow his luch to be harvested. In a sense, it kind of seemed like that. Almost like he was, in the first like 6 or 7 minutes, he was talking about like it's just an addiction to life that everybody has, and like he was like, there's no consent I had no consent to be born, which is like every teenager on TV shows cries about, which makes it seem even more psyopy that it's just like a TV show type of crying about stuff. Like, I never asked you to bring me into this world, But again, that would match up sort of with like a Gnostic,
Sure.
Whatever sect it might be of the demiurge. Like, I don't want to give a demiurge all my energy or my luch or life itself or whatever it might be. But I think that's the thing is that.
Do you remember have you heard of I believe the name, if you trust the history, the Cathars? There was this idea that
Cathars,
that they saw that procreation was prolonging the evil of incarnation.
Exactly.
So if this is a big trap, then that by abstaining from worldly pleasures, by becoming ascetic, and by voluntarily extinguishing yourself in some way, by just not participating, you're somehow transcending. And that's kind of how he sounded to me.
Kids either.
That's a huge part of it. And that's why he would be going after that clinic. But that's strange to me. Like, I'm not trying to give any ideas, but you think he would go after like a nursery or something, not a clinic. But I don't know.
Right. But that's why, a lot of it might not make a lot of sense, which would point, of course, more to psyop, because it's so, like, meaningless, but, like, potent to young people that might be observing this, because that's the whole thing is it's the other characteristic would be transgressive sex, In other words, having sex that doesn't reproduce because they don't want to bring more people into this world. And so, like, you have, like, right now, the whole, like, trans blah, blah, blah.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the Church of Euthanasia? Like, he should have joined them.
No.
Okay. Well, okay.
I think I've heard of something, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, they used to be famous for doing these really disgusting, like, street events, but where they would simulate cannibalism. But they believe that the world is evil, that man's destroying nature, and so they had these 3 pillars. And the pillars were, if you take your own life, you become a saint in their church, so they're all in support of that. Self-unaliving. Okay. And then the second pillar is cannibalism. They say you can't eat meat because it's immoral to kill animals, so they're strict vegetarian. But they think, but you can justify human meat because humans are the problem. And then the third part of it was non-reproductive sex. So those are 3 pillars of the Church of Euthanasia. You pay them $10 to join, and then you become a saint if you die in their name. I mean, it's a really horrific thing, but he could have joined them because essentially he's a candidate for sainthood in that particular church.
Yeah, and that's also similar to what was referred to as the Ophitic Gnostics, which would push the same idea. So I'm sure, like, at that church, once you got higher up, you start to be introduced to that, if you didn't already know about that, who the Ophites were and all that kind of stuff. But I did see MSM even point, I believe I was MSM, maybe on Fox or something, mention something about that where, the guy was also like a strict vegan as well, as just like you just said, of those church people. So I think there's more to that, but I mean, not that it's real, but again, it's just that these ideas are just being pushed through things like that, and people think nothing of it, but I think it's definitely like a psychic, mentally psychic, whatever you want to call it, working on young people's minds. All this tranny stuff, like turning kids into whatever, because of the non-reproductive sex aspect of it is the most important part to them. But I just thought of all that, like the whole luch harvesting, and that's kind of like he was almost like touching on that, which makes me wonder about the whole idea of luch harvesting too. It's just like too general, maybe. Like, it's too easy to fall back on. Like, if we can't think of something, we'll just like call it luch harvesting. But I mean, maybe it is, I'm not sure. But
he's protesting life itself. He's not protesting political. He's protesting life in principle. Very strange and nihilistic thing.
And saying no consent too. Like, what's this? I just threw that out there in the Gilded, and I think Synchro responded. I'm like, how do we know that there's no consent? To even allege that there's no consent is to allege that you know something more about life and pre-existence, and so this really just falls back, man. Everybody just needs to go agnostic and mind your own business when it comes to spirituality and what life was before and after death and all that kind of stuff, because no matter what, you're always going to get caught up in alleging something, some sort of belief system. Even when you say there was no consent, you're still saying that you know something that was happening before life, and that there was no consent, but you don't know that. Like maybe there was consent in some pre-existence, if there was such a thing as pre-existence. But that's why the kid was just, if he was real, which he probably isn't real. He does look too much like Angione kind of. But
he does look like they're trying to characterize maybe conspiracy theorists who are online too much, like the normal. He looks too normal. Yeah. And this is the thing that
and youth and
like 20 years ago it would have been Allah Akbar, bomb belt blowing up in a Jewish deli, and now it's some guy who was on the internet too much, who's on some extreme fringe. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's another variation of disease X. Like, this is why we need to censor the internet, because the mentally ill people.
Exactly. And that's why I was making the comparison to Momo from way back in the day on YouTube. Again, like a mental virus that was, again, aimed at teens and young kids. And, if you can get, like, kids to start being the new domestic terrorists, like, you can really affect a lot of things in the society and the world.
So Momo's that scary, creepy, smiley meme with the long black hair, and it's associated with like teens stabbing each other or something.
Yeah, allegedly, and then I guess Snopes tried to call it out and be like, "No, this was a hoax. It never happened." But then I'm like, if Snopes is saying it's a hoax, then I'm going to lean more towards, it was legit, and probably like. Because they try to be like, there was no proof that any kids actually harmed themselves during the Momo situation. But it's like, how can you even prove that? Like, that's just a statement that has no substance to it whatsoever. But more so, the fact that Snopes is saying it makes me lean more towards, I'm sure there was more to Momo than just that.
Do you remember Blood Over Intent and Quasi-Luminous and how popular that was?
Yeah, it's a little bit, yeah. But enlighten us, explain it to me a little more. I remember a little bit being mentioned, but...
Well, it got mainstream coverage. So there was like a subgroup of flat earthers who believed that we're dead, and that to come back to life, you need to go to the center of the world as the compass's point. And in order to join this cult, you had to tell the world your intention, but you had to write it in blood. So people were online writing their names in blood, basically saying, I am something, and I'm going to the center of the world. And it was just like this strange cult. But it was being popularized by a number of questionable flat earth people, and it was given a lot of media attention. And I thought, this could be another one of these psyops where, again, it's like they can get these panics going on. Like, I remember at one point, I think parents were panicked about Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. They can create panics about the internet in the same way, and it seems like they're always creating these panics.
Yeah, that's so easy to do, or at least attempt to do. But yeah, I mean, the whole question is how far does it actually spread? But the fact that, like, these mind viruses can spread, well, we've been talking about that for a while around here before Elon and all these idiots were talking about it. But I think that might be what the IVF thing was about, because it's just, otherwise it's just such trash. Like, listening, like you said, you fell asleep. I barely made it through like 7-10 minutes from just.
Well, look, the model is going to be the same.
A depressed little kid, like, crying.
It's going to be the same model as the war on terror thing, where, okay, this person in isolation became radicalized, and he did this terrible thing. He shot up, let's say the guy who shot up the National Guard Recruitment Center. They're like, well, he went to Yemen and a radical mosque. So they're able to trace the Quran verses and the cleric that gave it to him to some radical sect, and then he became infected with this violent mind virus, and then he blew up over here. And they've created this narrative where you can trace the source of the radicalization that resulted in violence. And they're probably going to do the same with a lot of this stuff, as they are. But
Yep, absolutely. No doubt. They also, they found the passports of the 9/11 hijackers too, so
right.
They can do whatever they want when they want to. But okay, anyway, that's all I got. Just it all connected for me right there.
Absolutely. Well,
Anyway,
thanks
all right,
for thanks for the call. Have a
yeah,
great night.
see you later.
All right, there is Lickety Split. And if you notice, I'm back on open broadcast software. I got tired of messing around with the other thing, and I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me the best possible settings. And it gave me instructions, and so far it's been working well. Phones are open, 505-510-4226. We haven't got to the boat yet, but we're getting there. The manifesto of Guy Edward... Okay, let me play a few seconds of his manifesto and tell me... We have a caller, after this caller, and we'll discuss whether or not you all think that it's some kind of AI. Okay. Hey, what's up? Hey, caller.
Hey, ideas. Thanks for taking my call. This is Dookie Put. I just wanted to tell you something that's been aggravating me ever since I first heard about it, and that's the Biden thing. It's like, did people suddenly forget that Biden's been dead for like several years now? Like, I've been working a lot lately, so I haven't been scouring as good as I could. But I haven't heard a peep from anybody about that fact, and it's kind of bizarre to me. Even like the conspiracy guys, they're pretending as if Biden's been alive and well this whole time, and all of a sudden he's got this advanced ass cancer. It's like, get out of here with that. Like, did you just forget?
You know, that's a great point.
After all these years?
That's a great point, because we have a legitimate case to make that the Biden that we had as a president had a different skull, smaller even, and a smaller nose than the one that was the VP. And that's not even a hard claim to make. But the problem, I think, is that there was so much misinformation flooding the zone that everybody in QAnon was like, well, that person is this person. And, they couldn't really get their story straight. And it seemed like they kind of lost they kind of lost that fact that they were grounded on, was this is a discrepancy. So I'm with you on that. It just speaks to the cognitive dissonance that people go with the consensus. But I don't think that President Biden was the VP.
No, probably not even then, back that far even. It's so crazy to me. It's like people suddenly forgot that fast. Like, I remember when the Alexa was saying that he died at the Naval Hospital, and that blew up and got real big, and you're just going to forget all that from the naval base death after he fell off his bike to now after the 4 years before Trump and all that. It's like, no, well, let's not forget where this all came from. And nobody's talking about it to my knowledge. I mean, like I said, I've been busy working and stuff a bunch, but I haven't seen nothing on social media. I was on my drive home from work. Clyde Lewis was on. Of course, I could barely hear it because it's AM, but it's like he's over here pretending that the guy is alive and all that. And it's like, man, it's whatever, dude. I ought to call him and be like, dude, you're so full of it. But it's really aggravating me. I know it shouldn't, but it's like, damn, dude. It's like, where's your memory at? Are
Exactly.
you retarded?
Well, this is why we have. This is why we need the parallel media, because we have a record. That's what we're doing. We're building a record, and it's like we're not backsliding to where suddenly we're doubting if there were survivors of 9/11. No, we have established here a methodology for adding on to the existing stories with additional information that opens up a lot of doubt. And at no point do I go back to believing the default story. And yeah, it shows you though that there is no truth in world stage media. It goes back to the dominant storylines. And when I look at President Joe Biden, next to Beau Biden, his deceased son, and then I look next and put that next to Vice President Joe Biden, I'm like, wait a minute, this is weird. Why does President Joe Biden, look more like Beau, skull-wise, than he does VP, which had me thinking that he was being played by his allegedly dead son. That was my theory at the time. But my point was, you can fake a lot of things with masks and AI, but the shape of a skull, like, you don't just shrink somebody's head.
Yeah, if anything, it'll get bigger from the makeup or mask. You know what I mean? So it's like, come on. people just have the memory of a goldfish, it seems like, or they just choose to live in the world that social media and Netflix has created for them. And it's just, to me, it's just beyond. It's just like they want to be in the fake, and that's all it is to it. It's like, I don't know.
Yes.
So I think people that's like that, to me, they're just lost and gone.
They're
I
lost.
used to think they were saving them, but it's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think they want to be. I don't think they want to see. They want to be blind. They want to be in the land of the blind, where the one-eyed man is ruling over them, and they're happy with that.
Unfortunately, I think you're kind of right, but I mean, I describe it as a forest of fakery, and the conspiracy theorists notice fake trees once in a while when they're pointed out, but they never bother to test out the whole thing and realize the whole thing is fake. They don't. So they're just as lost as the normies, and I think it's all by design. I think it's a nefarious design to keep the masses in ignorance and confusion.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, like I said, thanks for taking my call. That's really all I wanted to talk about tonight. Have a good night.
Hey, that's
listening.
Great point. Thank you for calling. Have a great night.
You're welcome.
Definitely a valid point. A valid point here. Like, there's no excuse. Ears Up says MSM zombification. Yeah, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to be lying on behalf of state propaganda. It's an affront to your own intellect, and it kind of makes you a bad person a little bit because you're complicit in really bad stuff. All right, let's play this clip here. This is the manifesto. Guy Edward Bartkus, that's his name. Guy Edward Bartkus, and he blew something up, which made me think of Guy Fawkes, of course. And Guy Fawkes is the guy whose face became immortalized as the Anonymous mask. And then Q MAGA people adopted that. So QAnon is actually a reference to this terrorist with the bomb plot, Guy Fawkes. So the name Guy kind of stands out for that reason alone. But let me play this and let me know if you think if this is a real person.
That's, nobody got my consent to bring me here. And I know what you're going to say. How could we have got your consent? Because you didn't exist, blah, blah, blah. Exactly the point. There's no way you can get consent to bring someone here, so don't fucking do it, right? If you're going to try to say something really fucking retarded, like, well, since you don't exist, you don't have a consent status, and therefore we don't have to get consent, this really isn't any different from saying, oh, well, the girl's unconscious, so I can't get her consent to have sex with her, so therefore it's okay, because there's no way to even ask for the consent, right? So, I mean, if you actually think that's a good argument against what I've said, right, you're absolutely retarded. Your brain...
Now, I hear him breathing. I can hear vocalizations. I can hear it sounds like a real person, but it sounds like a humanized AI bot to me.
Benefit, it's just a complete waste, and it's sickening. It really is sickening, So...
Like the pause, the so, that sounds like... Notebook LM. Go to the Notebook language model, Google, where you have it review a text, a book, an article, and then it gives you an audio overview where you have these two AI voices giving an impromptu podcast about your topic. And they say and ah, and they pause, so it sounds like real people. It sounds like NPR people, and it fools a lot of people. To me, it's annoying after 5 seconds. Like, no, just be a computer. You don't have to dumb yourself down. For me, it's okay. But this sounds very body to me. Anybody else? Observing reality, the pause and the tongue clicking. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think this is a humanized AI bot, and conveniently, he's dead.
Yeah, okay, so I'm doing all this explaining just, for the people who don't get this shit, like
this sounds like they wrote it to hide the fact that it's a bot. It's like Blade Runner. Blade Runner, where you're trying to, in Blade Runner, they're trying to discern which of these people are actually bots or replicants, and it's hard to tell. So they're testing their memories. They're doing these like interrogations because they're so good at simulating. But yeah, something about this makes me think it's a bot.
All the algorithms that are in control now, that are used to kind of manipulate what people see, what kind of what they think. I think it's pretty effective. I won't say it's like crazy effective. I don't think people are like completely retarded.
Okay, terrible. What a loss. What a loss if this was real. I mean, really. What an annoying person. Lickety Split says this idiocy is the mind virus. I think he's hard to listen to because it's intentionally designed to sound like a bot. I mean, not like a human, I mean. People in his vicinity began running and, quote, pandemonium erupted aboard the ship, he said. Oh, this is interesting. We always see this. This is related to the boat topic, and this was posted by They Lie We See. Whenever there's a psyop, people always say this. It was like, is this a movie? So this isn't an individual being questioned about the boat. I didn't know what to think. I was like, is this a movie? That's such a common refrain. Crisis actors will say it's like a movie. So let's try to get to some of the boat stuff. I just wanted to play a sample of the guy's audio manifesto. I'm of the opinion that it was probably fake. Like a ChatGPT creation. All right, moving on. We looked at the Trump as Elvis thing. Very strange. Trump is posting some wild stuff, but I don't think it means that the plan is happening. I don't think it means anything other than he's pandering to his base. And they lap it up. There's a pretty strong analogy here between the cult of the QAnon and this MAGA cult of personality and slot machines, and how people get addicted to gambling because of the intermittent reinforcement, where most of the time they're starving, but once in a while they're given some little breadcrumb, like, oh, here's a hint. Trump posted a Q, and now all those feelings come back. We're insiders. We're winning. The plan is happening, and it keeps them going. So now they're thinking, oh, look, Trump is finally going to get there. Public military tribunals. They're finally going to get Obama. And that keeps them on the hook. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Okay, Mexican Navy sailing ship was under tug escort before reversing into Brooklyn Bridge. Why were people laughing? Let's go ahead and play this clip here. You can hear some of the laughter when the boat hits the bridge. Now, I read somewhere that the masts were 33 feet too high. That's a pretty big discrepancy. But people are commenting about the laughter here. A lot of people are shocked by it. We should be shocked. I'm actually shocked that people are shocked. Does anyone know what happened? Okay, so the same reason they're laughing is the same reason they flippantly use foul language. Because this is a country completely out of control. Babylon America, in which few can control their urges, act courteously, or act with decency. I don't agree. I mean, I agree with the assessment here, but I don't agree this is new. I don't think the country's out of control because it's Babylon America and people can't control their urges. I think it's always been as bad as it is right now. In fact, crime is probably not as bad as it used to be, but it's just more publicized. What is the clearance of the Brooklyn Bridge? I got to get the exact numbers here, but I think there's a 33-foot discrepancy. And there were people on the masts. All right, let's see. I'm going through the comments beneath this video. But there were people on it, but they were all part of this. It was like a training vessel. So I'm kind of questioning this whole event as well. Video shows sailors on the masts of the Mexican Navy ship before it hit the Brooklyn Bridge. So you see they're all standing up there in some kind of show. They're all joining hands, And I'm pretty sure they're strapped in. And this is what I found, though, that the first thing that stood out to me. So take a look at these individuals dangling from the masts. It looks like acrobatics to me. Like this could be a stunt. You see how they're hanging? And I thought it was maybe significant that one of them was like dangling from the American flag. And it's the Mexican ship. So there's got to be some significance here. But now look here. This is the Final Destination Bloodlines movie poster where people are falling into a skull. It says, "From towers fall, fate's call." And it looks like it's in the water. I can't really tell in this picture here. But looking at these side by side, timing-wise, this movie poster is out. And now we're seeing people falling from a great height in a very, Final Destination kind of scene here. Just an accident, right? So there's something about that stands out as kind of meta-scripty, theatrical, the flag. I'm really finding the thing very questionable. Let's see what else. Nicholas Pitt says, "There were multiple ways to stop that craft. It's hard to believe the crew would be that incapable, but it's possible." Right. I'm still looking at it, though, as likely some kind of a hoax. I watched this podcast with Errol Musk, Elon's father, total conspiracy theorist. He believes in the Clinton body count, which is an old school conspiracy theory. He believes in a lot of strange stuff, actually. I'm not going to play it. I want to get into these other stories that are kind of relevant, like this one here. This is, I believe it's in, here it is, the largest antebellum mansion in the South, built in 1859 with 165 rooms, burns to the ground. Kind of looks like the White House. But you have this big house just burning, which is just powerful imagery. What does this mean? Not quite sure, but I'm certain it means something. There's always significance to these events, and I'm looking at this in the context of everything else that's going on. So, big burning house, historically significant. And look at the front of it. It looks very White House-like, built in 1859. And we were just talking about the movie Sinners, which is about the Deep South and entrenched racist power structure. So it's all kind of interesting, just taking note of it. For some reason, my screen is going dark. So give me a second here while it turns back on. Phones are open, 505-510-4226. Hopefully it's not game over. Okay, we're back on. We're good to go. Don't know what that was. Okay, we've been covering a lot of ground. FAA admits they knew that people were wrong about the drones, but they let the panic happen. Lickety Split says Civil War references left and right. Well, one of the big Civil War references that I was noting was in Final Destination, Bloodlines, the emphasis on the penny and Abraham Lincoln. And what is the significance of that? And then, of course, the penny is like the thing that starts the big event, the exploding space needle. And then later, at the end of the movie, the penny is tracing over the mind map of all the deaths, but the rolling Abraham Lincoln flag. And then Donald Trump has his image, this big mural of his face and a big mural of Lincoln draped over the building for the USDA. So there's another significant alignment here with Trump and Lincoln. So what's going on with that? Again, Civil War references, Daniel Penny, Civil War, class war, headshot, assassination obviously is kind of built into this. By the way, the movie Mickey 17 is going to be streaming here in just a few days, and I'm going to watch it. That's one where Mark Ruffalo plays a Trump-esque character who creates a political cult, does a little dance, talks about colonizing an all-white planet. He gets shot, and the bullet grazes his cheek. Lots of Trump connections there. Of course, that's purely coincidental. Look at this. Winona Ryder says that Mel Gibson called her an oven dodger. Actor claims Gibson made anti-Semitic and homophobic remarks to her at a party 15 years ago. Very on brand for Mel Gibson. And I credit Mel Gibson as a metascriptor with the Trump shooting. Like, who directed Butler, Pennsylvania? I think Mel Gibson. And this is based on how it was framed with the Braveheart symbolism, with Trump's avatar, the actual photo itself, matching the Braveheart poster. But also, he was called Braveheart in the New York Post when he went back to Butler. So, and then Mel Gibson, of course, was in The Patriot a year before 9/11. And in the opening scene, he's making a rocking chair. He weighs it 9 pounds, 11 ounces. And he sits on it. And everybody stares at him like they're scared. And then they focus on the back of the chair, the 2 chair legs, and it collapses. Very 9/11-y scene, because after this, they're invaded. Recently, and he was in the conspiracy theory movie, and then recently he put out that movie Flight Risk, which preceded the aerial immolations that we were treated to immediately after. But Mel Gibson has also been associated heavily with the QAnon movement because of, well, they think that he's an insider, he's exposed Hollywood, all scripted. And then he directed Passion of the Christ with Jim Caviezel, who's a big Q hero, because he portrayed human trafficker Tim Ballard, who they believed was stopping human trafficking. And then Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson, of course, working together on a new one. I think it's Resurrection of the Christ. And Jim Caviezel, by the way, convinced Mel to put him in the film when he said, "Look, I'm 33 and my initials are JC." So those were his qualifications. So he plays Jesus, and while they're recording Sermon on the Mount, on the 5th take, Jim Caviezel gets struck by lightning. Luckily, they brought him back to life. So there you have it, Mel Gibson. And yes, didn't Trump make him an honorary ambassador to Hollywood? Exactly. Exactly. It's all just Q lore. Like, he's an insider. He's a white hat, is what he is. Like, he and Sylvester Stallone are like Q white hats. Okay, let's see. By the way, Dan Bongino said that there is no big story behind Epstein, that Epstein, in fact, did kill himself. And what's interesting is he's sitting here with Kash Patel. And I spell Kash Patel with a Q because he wears QAnon socks. And he's a big QAnon proponent. And Kash Patel and Don Bongino here are now saying that there is no conspiracy here at all.
On that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. And whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't.
Oh, and also, he's pouring water on the fires about the conspiracy. He says there's no conspiracy with the shooting attempts on Trump either. So, again, FBI is not going to get to the bottom of anything. I saw these floating around on Twitter. So in the 1960s, the TWA gave out coffee stirrers, like stir sticks, in their coffees. And look, if we look at the screen, the coffee stir stick is an airplane, and then the chemtrails merging into the actual stir stick, and it has TWA on it. But this is from the 60s. And the reason why this is notable to me is that many veteran chemtrail scientists will tell me, when I was a kid, skies were blue, and the sun was yellow, and then they started chemtrailing us sometime in the 90s. They all say it. Ask any veteran chemtrail alarmist, hey, do you remember a time before chemtrails? And they'll say, yeah, we do. They didn't used to have those. And they're retroactively adding them into movies, and it's a big psyop because they just added these. The skies used to be blue. Well, look, explain this. How come in the 1960s the TWA made chemtrail stir sticks for your coffee? Chemtrail themed stirrer. So there is, I don't know what you want to make of that. This is nice. This is a list of Anon accomplishments for all you QAnons from 2017 to 2023. I'm just going to read what they did, and then you put the number in the chat so you can guess. How many children did QAnon save from the traffickers? Put the number in the chat. How many politicians or celebrities were executed for crimes against humanity by QAnon? Put the number in the chat. We're just going over QAnon accomplishments from 2017 to 2023. We'll just say to 2025. How many instances of storms commencing or things coming that couldn't be stopped? No, the answer is not 33 children saved. This is the first time. This is the first time that one of our pop quizzes, the answer wasn't 33. No, 0. It's all zeros. 0 saved, 0 executions, 0 storms, 0 things happening that couldn't be stopped. Bunch of zeros. Kind of a trick question. You would think at least 33 of one of those, but no. Okay, moving on. Colombian influencer La Mona was tragically, now this is the one someone had brought up, was tragically shot outside her home at just 22 years of age. Now this is notable. Gabby Petito was 22. And at the time of the Gabby Petito killing, we had noted a lot of instances of the number 22, specifically with these blonde Virgo archetypes, like the spring maiden Persephone being kidnapped by Hades. That was the general story behind how Gabby Petito was presented in media. But I'll have to go to my mind maps, and I have a mind map for the number 22. And there were a number of stories that correlated with this. But anyway, we'll continue to dig into this. But apparently she died on a live stream, but I haven't actually seen it. They cut it first. So I can't analyze it for realism. Okay, continuing here, going through my quotes. I mean, my tweets. I got a lot of stuff here I'm not talking about related to the woke mind virus. So in 2023, I wrote this article called "The Red Pilled and the Woke," and I was describing how the leftist shrill activists with their scapegoating of systemic racism and their oppressor narrative, how it has become mirrored. That red pill awakening, that we're awake because we took red pills, is the perfect analogy of wokeness, woke ideology, that it's alt woke. And I've been saying this for a couple of years, and I've been contrasting critical race theory and critical Jew theory, how they both have a scapegoat oppression narrative, and each one is the victim of a genocide. And I was just pointing out how there's no difference between a soy boy Antifa and a Proud Boy. That these are both, in a way, arrested development positions, and they're competing for the affection of daddy government. But I've been pointing this out for some time. But now the phrase woke right has gone viral. And woke right pretty much encompasses anybody who believes in a certain set of things, like anti-positions. If you're anti-geoengineering, you're the equivalent of an environmentalist, which makes you kind of a woke person. If you are anti-fill in the blank, there's probably a counterpart on the other side. And conspiracy theorists in Trutherville actually fit. If you're a red pillar, you're alt woke. You are exactly like the shrill, rabid, radicalized leftists. And your mission is essentially the same. And it's kind of an interesting thing to note that it's going, viral with the broader political discourse. Like they're actually becoming a little self-aware about it because it's not new. And it's not just the conspiracy theorist fringe. It encompasses all of the America First, the Nick Fuentes type crowd, even Tucker Carlson. They all fit this whole narrative, even though they're better at kind of hiding it than Fuentes. But anyway, the woke right as a phrase has been kind of targeting those who blame Jews for everything. And Roseanne Barr made a tweet about it, and she has been getting hit with a lot of flack for it. So I'm not really focusing too much on it now, but it may be a thing later that I'll be talking about more. It's kind of a cudgel, because if you're going to be shrill, shrieking at me because I'm not scared of chemtrails, I can just dismiss you as woke. It's a good way to dismiss people who are coming from a place of just pure emotion. And I'm looking for some good heuristics. I got my Occam's razor, got my Hitchens razor, and now I got my woke right cudgel. The woke right cudgel is just, okay, bad arguments, gone. That's why I also point out that I'm an inactivist. If you're an activist and you take any anti-position, look, I mean, some people aren't going to want to hear this. Anti-vax and pro-vax are the same psyop. And so if you take that anti-position, you're just dismissible. Lickety Split says, the Civil War coming is depending on woke right, woke left, actually. Well, I don't think the Civil War is coming and World War III isn't coming. We're already in World War III. And it's the perpetual war, which is the worldview monopoly, worldview warfare, keeping us all on the same sheet. So that's already happening. And Civil War isn't coming. It's never ending because they don't want this. It's not intended to end. There's no reconciliation. There's never going to be peace. There's no peace on the world stage. There's always going to be confusion and intentional divisions being sown and being driven even further apart. It's all by design. When I look at the boxes that people put themselves in, it's not a coincidence that the same people who are open borders are open skin. You'll notice the people who are for open borders have porous skin when it comes to the needle. And the people who are anti-needle want closed borders. And it has deeper, I think there's a deeper, I think, reasoning. It's not just they're being purely logical. I think it ties into something actually subconscious. These are tapping into deep-seated fears and anxieties. And it has to do with one's relationship to power. There's a reason why the alien extraterrestrial threat is viewed as a threat by the right, but the left sees the aliens as angels, whereas the right believes in angels and they think aliens are demons. And this is something I noted some time ago, but it was really highlighted by Tucker Carlson, who's a major influencer in the woke right, far right conspiracy realm, where he claims that his friends at the Pentagon have told him stuff that he can't even tell his wife. Specifically, that aliens are demons, and the aliens have made deals with government. So you connect that as well. So the aliens are now basically working with the deep state, with Democrats. So demons on the left, alien demons on the left, and on the right, they believe in angels, traditional religion, and they're scared of aliens. And then Tucker Carlson later claims in this Christian documentary, unless he was lying, he claims that he was attacked by a demon in his sleep that left scratches on his back and he's got scars. So if aliens are demons and he was attacked by a demon in his sleep, then he was attacked by an alien, you see. But my point being is that he's also an exponent of white replacement theory, closed borders, anti-vax is platformed on his side. So it all ties together. Civil mind war, says Angst G. Exactly. Well, they make these belief clusters. So if you find one thing to be reasonable, you're now either tacitly endorsing a bunch of stuff or you're accepting it, but regardless, you're adding your weight to a whole bunch of ideas and people who believe in these ideas. That's why I say you have to leave Trutherville. Even if you believe in one of these conspiracies, you can believe in it from your own position off-world stage. But if you join Trutherville and you drink the Kool-Aid at Alex Jonestown, you're feeding your luch to a lot of lies and you're adding your weight to a movement, to a religious ideology, in fact. Trutherism is a religion. And it's not a good religion. I mean, I'm not really for religion anyway, but Trutherism is a neo-Gnostic, New Age, I would even say political religion. But that's really what it is. It's a religion. Okay, moving on. Going through my feed here, the tall ship. We're talking about the ship here. That was it. It says the tall ship, the one that hit the bridge, was in San Diego as part of its tri-continental training cruise. It's owned by the Mexican Navy. It is a sail training vessel that the Mexican Navy uses to train its personnel. So that has been brought up in the context of, could this have been a psyop? Are we looking at just a regular event, or were these trained acrobats? Could they have been practicing for this? Could that have been a fake or staged event? I think it's a valid question. And the body count wasn't all that high.